Hey guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are just going to wait a couple more minutes for some more people to join our call. And I'm excited to share with you guys today. So many people from all over North America chiming in today. I'm just checking out who's here already. Great to see you guys. So we'll give everyone a minute or so to log in. I'm curious to hear some of you I don't know. I'd love to hear if you can drop in the chat where you're joining us from. I can see already we've got a bunch of them. West Coast, East Coast, the United States, Ontario, the great province of Ontario. Amazing. And so, guys, just Northern Indiana, love it. Alberta, the DC area. Love it, guys. I'm excited to be in community with you guys today. So I asked ChatGPT to come up with a recommendation for the music, and it came up with U2, which lands very well with my generation. But there was speculation that nobody else would appreciate the music. So if you give Dave a shout out if you loved our intro music. So, as a reminder, guys, this presentation is being recorded today. So, if you have questions that are more personal in nature and you want to share them with me privately in the chat, you're certainly welcome to do that. And I can either respond to them after the fact or I can reach out to you individually and address them later on. But we are recording, and you're going to be receiving the copy of the slide deck for this presentation after the call, as well as any show notes that we've got. So you don't need to worry too much about scribbling as I talk, and I am going to talk a lot. We will be sharing as we conclude at the end. So give everyone a minute or two to just log on, which is great. Dave, are we ready to roll? So Dave is our director of marketing here at the Carol Foderick Real Estate Group, and he's going to be doing the back end. He's going to be doing my slide deck today. So I'm grateful. Is everyone good? Okay, let's get started. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I want to just thank you, first of all, so much for being here and for taking the time to join us today. I know how busy everybody is this first week of January. And I truly appreciate you taking the time to invest in your business. Today's session is part of our ongoing Signature Systems Masterclass series, where we focus on bringing clarity, structure, and practical frameworks to areas of your real estate business that are often left undefined. So, as many of you know, my name is Carol Foderick, and I'm the broker of record and owner of Signature Elite Realty. We host these masterclass sessions because we believe our responsibility as a brokerage goes really beyond transactions. So, my role as the broker here is to provide clarity, education, structure to areas where the industry itself often falls short, or at least perhaps leaves gaps. So here at Signature Elite, we're committed to helping agents build their businesses, not just as careers, but giving them frameworks that they can actually apply, whether they're operating solo, whether you're building a team, or scaling even towards something bigger. Today's session is going to be a continuation of the one that we did last month, and it's really going to focus today on one of the most misunderstood and inconsistently defined areas in our industry, which is licensed roles within a team. We're going to unpack all of that today. So it's not about telling you what you should be doing. It's about just giving you guys some language, some structure and perspective so that you can make more intentional decisions in 2026 if your intention is to scale a business, so that you can really support sustainable growth and long-term success. So for those of you that don't know me, and I'm honored that so many of you I'm already in community with, so I'm grateful that you show up. But if you don't know me, this is my 25th year in real estate, and I do lead one of the largest and most productive teams in Canada, with over 500 transactions and $4.5 million in GCI in 2025 alone. And I want to be clear, I don't say that to impress you guys. I just want you to know that I'm speaking from a perspective of having seen and done a lot in real estate. And it's my intention today to just share with you what I've seen work and what I haven't seen work in this industry. I've been very transparent about, sharing my origin story with you guys in the past. As you know, I started on the front desk of a Royal LePage office making $11 an hour. And I've moved through a lot of the roles myself that we're going to be talking about today. And now as a broker owner, honor. It's my honor to not only be leading my amazing team, the Carol Foddick Real Estate Group, but to walk alongside a lot of other amazing leaders here at Signature Elite who are also growing and scaling teams of all sizes and types. So I've had a front row seat to many teams, and I'm excited to share with you today why I think one, every agent needs to consider either starting or joining a team, and why they fail or some pitfalls so that you can avoid them. So I want to talk about failure for a minute because there's going to be people on this call that bring many different perspectives to this whole idea of starting or scaling a team. Some of you are intimidated by it. Some of you have tried and maybe taken a step back because it didn't go as planned. And some of you are going to be observing this call from a team member perspective, which is a really, really important thing to do if you're considering joining a team. It's been my observation in, 2.5 decades of real estate is that most teams don't fail because of bad intentions. They actually fail from a very honest place. Teams are often formed in moments of rapid growth or overwhelm when help is really needed quickly, roles or evolve organically, perhaps instead of strategically. And because our industry lacks a lot of real differentiation of these roles, any kind of uniformity or oversight around licensed team roles, agents may believe that they're being offered one type of opportunity, and team leaders believe they're getting something entirely different in return. And everyone thinks they're aligned, but they're actually operating from very, very different assumptions about all kinds of things. It's that misalignment that leads to blurred professional lines, mismatched expectations. And that's when the compensation starts to really feel unfair from one side, or perhaps maybe unsustainable from the other. And the real cost is that one bad match can either burn an agent from ever wanting to join another team again, or on the flip side, can convince a team leader that scale simply isn't possible. Over time, those misunderstandings turned into frustration, disengagement, and breakdown. And that's when we really start to see teams that can implode. So I really want to just bring some clarity and alignment to this conversation today. Another reason that a lot of people hesitate to scale is this belief that licensed help is going to cost them money, not make them money. And that is a real misconception. I think we can all agree as team leaders that there's a certain level of production. It no longer makes sense for a high performing salesperson to handle every single administrative task themselves. And delegating unlicensed work to a skilled administrator is obviously, for most of us, it's a no-brainer because it frees up time for higher dollar value activities. But for some reason, this idea of leverage often stops with an unlicensed administrator. That it doesn't always translate into the idea of licensed support. So instead, licensed help is often viewed as giving something up. So whether that's money, a client relationship, a lead, rather than an opportunity that can really amplify results for the both of you, both the team agent and the team leader. So today we're going to really look at how to clearly define some licensed roles with the intention of reducing logistical pressure, increasing overall production, and most importantly to some of you, is going to be creating entirely new income streams rather than simply redistributing the ones that you already have. So I want to take a step back for a minute and speak to you very personally, because scaling isn't just a growth strategy anymore. Scaling is necessary for all of us, regardless of where we are at in our businesses. We're at a point in real estate where team-based models are expanding across the industry. And quite frankly, I think we can all agree that sometimes a client experience is often better served by a group of aligned professionals than by a single agent trying to do everything alone. There is also a very real glass ceiling on what one licensed individual can sustainably produce on their own. For a lot of us, that's around 40 transactions. I know that's when I started to hit my ceiling. But beyond that, something really does start to give. It's either the client experience, your ability to multiply opportunities from existing transactions, or you begin borrowing capacity from other parts of your life. It's time with family, time with friends, or your own physical and mental well-being. Burnout is rampant in our industry, as we can all agree. So scaling creates leverage, and leverage is what turns a job into a business. It also creates long-term value, because businesses that are built on systems and people is worth far more than simply selling a database. And I think that we all know somebody in our industry, or perhaps have been in the situation ourselves where an unexpected emergency, whether it's personal or it's somebody that, we love, has forced us to step back from our business. And even if you have like a great colleague, like covering for you while you're away, we all know that that is not the same thing as having a truly leveraged and aligned business model. Coverage is temporary and reactive. Leverage is intentional and it's a built system. So when systems, roles, and responsibilities are clearly defined, the business can continue to flow seamlessly even without your constant presence. And it's that kind of structure that protects your clients, your income, and your momentum, especially in those minutes when you need it most. And that's really what today is about. So we're not talking about simply adding people for the sake of adding people. It means adding the right people in the right roles with really clear expectations on both sides. Licensed roles are not interchangeable. And when we treat them as such, we can create confusion, misalignment, and really disappointment on both sides. And so what I want to do today is walk you through 5 distinct license roles that commonly exist within real estate teams and give them some really definite terms and understanding so that you guys can really understand what might be the best fit for your next hire. Each one serves a really different purpose. They create leverage in different ways. And when they're properly defined, it can help you reduce pressure, increase your production, and build a business that is sustainable, scalable, and really not solely dependent on you. So I want to get started today. So I would hope that people can kind of just jump into the chat. Give me an idea of where your teams are at currently. So are you guys soloed? Are you a team agent? Do you have an agent that is working alongside with you? Are you thinking about hiring one? Would love to hear from you guys. And I know already, so we've got Carolyn from New Jersey, solo with TC. Love that. Diane's a broker owner with 7 agents. That's awesome. Jocelyn from Alaska. I know you've got a big team. Matt's got 8 agents and 2 full-time assistants. So love it because there's a real mix here. We also have joining our call a bunch of team agents from my team who are going to be available to answer questions too if any of you have them. So Mandy, team leader, 2 other producing agents, director of ops. Love it. So we're going to talk about how to build join a sales team that matches your goals. And I say matches your goals because really there are going to be no 2 people on this call that are going to have the same expectation in terms of what it is that they take away from this. Some of you are in really early stages of just thinking. Some of you are already in a place where you need this to work. So happy to answer all questions at the end about this. So let's get started. Dave's controlling my slides, so we're going to flip forward through. So we're going to start at the very beginning, which we know from The Sound of Music is a very good place to start. Nobody got that? Only the older millennials, I guess, with me. See, Jim laughed. I love you, Jim. Love it. License administrator. So for some of you on the call already, and I got some notes about questions ahead of time. Some of you asked about hiring your first administrator. If you're in a situation where you already have an unlicensed administrator, you may skip this role because very often an unlicensed administrator is somebody that is handling a lot of the logistics and back end of your business. If you don't already have an administrator and you're thinking that an admin is going to be your first hire, I want you to consider whether a licensed admin would be a good hire. And I'll tell you why. For context, this recording is happening in January 2026, and we find ourselves at a moment in this industry where there are a lot of licensed people that are looking for opportunities of consistency of income that don't exist in the marketplace right now because regardless of where you are in North America, we're in a market that's in flux right now. So if you haven't already hired an administrator, you may consider hiring a licensed administrator. And let's define what that looks like. So obviously it's somebody that has a license that is legally allowed to trade in real estate or transact real estate in the jurisdiction that you live in. But by definition, a licensed administrator is a licensed professional working in an administrative capacity within your home or office, providing elevated logistical and transactional support. This role is facilitative in nature. It's important. We're going to come back to that. And they operate as an employee under your direction and is designed to leverage your time rather than independently generate business. So Dave, if you want to give me my other talking points on this slide, I'm going to kind of talk you through it. So workplace schedule, super important. Licensed admin, primarily an in-office role, whether or not that is in their home office, your office, your physical place of business. But typically speaking, this is call it 40 hours a week, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, 8 to 4, whatever it is, with occasional field responsibilities. They might, drop a lockbox off, drop papers off, something like that. The scope of work for a licensed administrator, really, they are managing licensed and unlicensed administrative tasks on behalf of the team leader, supporting transaction flow and operational efficiency. So for the licensed leaders on this team, you'll know that there are some functions of administrative tasks on the back end of a real estate deal that cannot be legally completed by an administrator. If you're joining us from Canada, an example of that would be like, fin tracking or signing of agreement of purchase and sale or documentation. And this is why I encourage people that don't already have an admin to consider a licensed admin first, because this will allow them to be able to log into your DocuSign, drop signatures for you, know where all of the initials are supposed to go. It may provide real organizational support to you that will lessen your load on the back end so that you can go out and do other dollar producing activities. So they're going to be doing primarily administrative stuff. Typically speaking, compensation for these roles is a salaried position. And typically a licensed role will get paid, a licensed admin will get paid more than an unlicensed admin for the obvious reason that they are more skilled and capable at doing some of the functions that you're going to need them to do, but also respecting the fact that they are usually absorbing the costs associated with maintaining their license. So if you have required errors and omissions insurance, if you had board dues and they're a member of your real estate board, typically those are absorbed into the compensation package by that employee. And you're passing along the compensation for that through your salary. This is really important. The next note that I have here, which is classified as employee. And I want to sidestep here for a moment to talk about something that happens in our industry a lot, whether what side of the border you're on. There is some misbelief, and I don't know where it started or why, that if you get somebody to agree to the fact that they are an independent contractor, that somehow they are an independent contractor under the law. And regardless of what country you live in or what state or what province, I want to be clear that there are employment laws that impact every single industry the same, regardless of what you and your employee or your independent contractor choose to call yourself. So when you're thinking about all of these roles that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to make a differentiation about where we likely cross over from employee to contractor. And why that's important is because when you're making a commitment to somebody as an employer, you have a whole other set of responsibilities that now flow through to you. But some financial, you sometimes have to make source deductions or remittances on their behalf, but also requirements around termination and HR compliance and all of these things. The moment you hire your first person, whether they are licensed or unlicensed and they are on a salary, you are now defined as an employer in most places. And with that comes an entire set of HR compliance. And so I want to encourage you guys, as you consider hiring somebody, regardless of how informally you think it is, I want you to be very aware that you may be in a situation where you open yourself up to liability and responsibility, regardless of what it is you're calling yourself. So just an important asterisk. Coming out of that rabbit hole, let's move on. A lot of time people will ask, well, what happens when there's a licensed person on my team and they want to conduct their personal business? So typically with a licensed administrator, personal business usually revolves around like referrals or very, very close transactions that are not really arm's length. So family, close friends, personal transactions for where they themselves live. These people are not typically going out and building their own businesses outside of regular working hours. You may ask yourself, okay, well, why would somebody who has a real estate license work in this role? We have, and I have had the opportunity to be in community with many of these people. We have amazing administrators that choose to get a license because it means that they're going to receive higher remuneration for their work, but they have no desire to actually go out and build a business. They don't necessarily have entrepreneurial goals. They are just amazing at the facilitation of the real estate transaction from a paperwork point of view, but do not have a desire to do it on the sales side. They may be very competent. I've met many licensed admins in my life that are making, six-figure salaries because they are very, very skilled at what they do. But to be clear, many of them don't want to grow business of their own. So I would suggest that you work out a predetermined commission split with these people if you hire a licensed admin ahead of time so that there is clear understanding if they do bring in business, how what that looks like. In when I mention here at the end client relationship, this speaks specifically to the clients that are being served on a day-to-day basis by this licensed administrator that are generated by your team. All team generated clients remain property of the team leader. And when I use the term property of, what I'm really referring to is ownership of the lead and the relationship at the end of the transaction. So as an example, if you are a licensed admin for a team and somebody sells their house, that person obviously would remain in the database and property of the team that generated the lead, serviced the lead, and that team leader. So it is not an opportunity for an administrator to build a database out of your clients. So that is licensed administrator. Many of you have been licensed admins. Many of you have licensed admins. How is it different from this next category, which is the second of the five, which is licensed assistant? So I'm going to say that a licensed assistant, we've got a definition here, is probably the most misunderstood and challenging role that exists from these five because it is the one that lacks clarity the most in our industry. Many of you have what you refer to as a licensed assistant, but they're not actually, that's not what you think they're doing, or they don't think that they're doing that. And I want to differentiate how it's different from what we just talked about, because you might hear licensed admin and licensed assistant and think it's the same, but it's not. A licensed assistant provides expanded administrative, logistical, and limited sales support, both in office and in the field. This role functions as both an employee and a licensed salesperson under your direction, supporting transaction execution and offering limited lead generating capacity. So how is that different than what we just talked about? Well, workplace and schedule is a big one. So this is now going to be a combination of office and field work and a flexible schedule that may include evenings and weekends. So what do I mean by that? Well, if they are now assisting you with the transaction of real estate, we know as professionals that often that transaction of real estate happens at times outside of office hours, so evenings and weekends. And so it would be reasonable for a licensed assistant to expect that not only are they going to be working outside of office hours, but they will also be working outside of the office. So the scope of work may be that they are still doing administration, but they're also combining it with activities that only a licensed person can do, such as showings, open houses, document execution, scheduling. They may sit an open house for you. They may fill in at a buyer's inspection, something like that. They may go and do a walkthrough of a property on your behalf that you're getting ready to list. So a licensed assistant is now going to be an expanded version of a licensed admin. And understandably, compensation is also going to change. Because they're now incurring other expenses to be out on the road on your behalf. So this is somebody that's not just working at a desk. They now need a car and other access to other places. So compensation is going to shift, and it is going to be often a base salary, and it's either going to be supplemented by performance bonus or a limited commission opportunity. So what does that mean? It means that you may be compensating them a small percentage on every transaction that happens because they're providing additional logistical support in addition to that 40-hour work week. Or they may be receiving compensation only for specific tasks on an hourly basis outside of their regular office hours. So you're aware this still typically classifies as employee. And here in Ontario, to give you guys some context, an employee is defined by somebody that works under your direction and uses the resources that you provide them with, among other parts of the definition. But understand that if you are still directing them where they need to be and how they're going to do something, then they may still fall under the classification as an employee in your jurisdiction. This is licensed assistants really, and I said that this was often the most misunderstood rule because often people become licensed admins and then migrate over, either willingly or not, into this assistant role. And this is challenging because if you've hired somebody that has the expectation that they're going to be in the office and doing that, and now all of a sudden, you've given them eight different things that they need to run around and do today, this is where the misalignment can start to happen. So I want to be really clear here that when you're sitting down to hire somebody as a licensed assistant, you need to be honest with them about how much time they're going to be in the office, out of the office, what the expectation is about covering the stuff that they missed while they were out of the office, and all of those good things. Um, and then really deciding which of those two kind of intro roles are going to be better options for you. Licensed assistants, it's reasonable to believe that they may have a desire to start to conduct personal business. Usually it's limited lead generation, and usually it might be just restricted to inbound referrals, but this might be somebody who says, okay, well, I'm going to sit the open house on the weekend for our listing. What happens with the inquiries that come through? So if somebody comes in and wants to buy it, what is the commission split going to look like? What is the commission split going to look like if I'm, sitting an access visit with one of your buyer clients, and their friend comes, and me and the friend start talking about real estate, and now they want to buy, a condo with me. What does that look like? So I'm going to encourage you in your contract with a licensed assistant to really be mindful and clear about what that compensation is going to look like, and to be as specific as possible so there is no potential for misunderstanding. My team contract with the agents that I have on my team is like 15 pages long, and that may seem really overwhelming to some of you. Be like, oh, it doesn't need to be that long. It is really, really clear so that there is no misunderstanding with any of my team agents about how each of us are going to be compensated and what the expectation and responsibilities are on both sides. So I'm going to encourage you that if you have a licensed assistant and they're working for you some of the time, but they're also kind of doing their own thing, that there's a really clear understanding about how they're going to be paid if they do generate business of their own, and also what the expectation is about to continue to manage your business if you're paying them, some sort of base salary as well. Client relationships, generally speaking, remain the property of the team leader. If you have facilitated as a team leader the creation of those opportunities, it's reasonable to expect that those relationships will remain within your database. So a really important one, guys, as I said to you a number of times, this is the one that really gets misunderstood the most, because it has the catch-all that everyone says, I've got a licensed assistant, and it goes by other things, buyer's agent, administrator, we use these terms interchangeably. They really mean something different, and it's important that you be respectful of that. We're going to move on to the third role here. And if you guys have questions or thoughts or comments, drop them in the chat. I'm monitoring here on the side as well. We're going to talk about the nature now of hiring team agents or agents for your real estate team that have specific functions. And this is a common one that we hear a lot: buyer's agent or listing specialist. I have both of these on my team. We call them something a little bit different. We call them buyer's agent, and then my listing specialists are referred to as director of sales to give them credibility with our seller clients. But a buyer's agent or a listing specialist is a licensed sales professional working primarily in the field to support transaction volume and business scalability. While they are facilitative to the team leader's business, this role may also allow agents to grow their own book of business within defined parameters. So let's talk about what this looks like. In terms of a buyer's agent or a listing specialist, why would you hire one? As a team leader, this is where you get into the leverage part of it. So at the top of this call, I said that we were going to talk about logistical support, and the first two roles we talked about are primarily aimed at that. This is where we start to get into leverage. And leverage in real estate or on a real estate team is the mechanism by which we can use other licensed people to help not only provide them with a stream of income, but also to scale our business as one person. And I'll take a step back and sort of share a personal story. Years ago, I was an agent that would really run with anyone. I had this belief that whether it was a $1,500 rental or a $1.5 million purchase, I could help everyone. And if it was a referral in, it was my responsibility to serve that person. And I was running, before I had kids, probably 80 or 90 hours a week in, week out. I can't tell you how many vacations I ruined, how many dinners I had to step out of and then just never, never went back. The dinner was over by the time my call was finished. This is the challenge with running a successful business is that sooner or later you will get into a transactional roadblock because there's just not any more of you to go around. Now, unfortunately, a lot of us tend to figure out a way to drive around that roadblock before we respect the fact that we have transactional capacity. And what I mean by that is when the need for a listing specialist or a buyer's agent arises, usually you have already borrowed as much time as you possibly can from your family obligations or from your social obligations. There is a reason why real estate has one of the highest divorce rates of all professions in the world. It's because we tend to sacrifice personal time with our family first. Or your relationships with your clients and the service that may have been hallmark for you for a long time has started to suffer. And so I realized that I first needed a buyer's agent when I got fired by a client of mine that I had worked with two previous times in the past, had great relationship with, but I was late the first time I had to go meet her, and the second time I screwed up the meeting point. And it was reasonable for her to fire me. And in hindsight, I'm grateful because it gave me, perspective that it was really time to think about opening my hand and sharing my business with somebody. But many of you on this call have been in this circumstance before where that even if you didn't get fired, that your client was not served to the best of your ability because you were just running in all directions at 100 miles an hour because you felt that that's what your business needed from you. So now we're in a situation with my business when a buyer referral comes in, I'll set up a listing call with them or set up a call with them, discovery, where I will have one of my agents from my team join the call. We'll have a little chat about what their real estate goals are. I will introduce the buyer's agent, explain that they'll be working on my behalf to facilitate showings. But then the buyer's agent will handle the entirety of that buyer relationship during the time that they're buying a house. Similarly, with our listings, I will still, as somebody who has stepped mostly out of production, I will still facilitate the introduction by doing the listing presentation myself. Sometimes one of our director of sales will come with me. But once the property goes to market, that relationship is going to be handled by somebody that is very, very skilled at just doing that part of the transaction. So they're going to manage incoming offers, negotiate the offers, handle the feedback calls, update the clients with regards to what else is selling in the neighborhood, all of that good stuff. All of the stuff that really we know we need to be doing more of, especially in a shifted market, but we just don't have the logistical capacity to when you're sitting with multiple listings on the market. So who are the agents that want to jump into these roles? Because you may think, well, if you're a great buyer's agent, you're a great listing specialist, why aren't you just selling a higher volume of real estate yourself? Well, what's interesting is that the answer is often people that love the transaction of real estate. They love the negotiation. They love that part of it. What they don't love is the process of building the business or acquiring clients. And they don't really love facilitating the relationship after the close. They love to be the ninja that just jumps in and gets the deal done. But then is not responsible for generating the lead or following up after the fact. So what's different from the other roles that we've talked about is that this is the first time where this is clearly these are client-driven hours. So as we know, offers can come in at Sunday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or you may be negotiating an offer at 9 o'clock on a Monday night. The workplace and schedule are often going to be really driven by when the transaction of real estate happens. You may agree that there should be some office presence just to be able to, functionally sort of mastermind with this person to understand how things are going. But for me, both our buyer's agents and our director of sales are all accountable to a weekly call where they provide me updates on the status of each of these files that they're working on, and giving me the opportunity to jump in if we think it's sort of a situation that they really need to be, that I need to be a part of. Scope of work, again, they are responsible only for the sales and client-facing activities. They are not doing administrative responsibilities on the back end. And in my case, this is 100% commission based on a predefined split. So I'll be very transparent. My director of sales get 10% of the pre-tax and pre-expense GCI. and they're classified as an independent contractor unless there's fixed hours that are required for them to be in office. This works really well for people who are generating their own business and looking for this as like supplemental income or just really love this part of it. It also gives an opportunity for an emerging agent to really add income to their bottom line without having to figure out all of the client acquisition. Client relationship, team generated leads continue to remain property of the team leader. So to be clear, I have acquired the lead, I have acquired the client, and I have nurtured the relationship to be able to generate the referral. Somebody has facilitated that transaction, which they get paid that 10% on the listing side for. But then I resume the care for that client on an administrative side with my salaried staff, and then I'm responsible for the contact with them in perpetuity after the transaction. So the client relationship remains my ownership, including, importantly, any referrals that are generated from that transaction as well. They stay in my database. So that's a buyer's agent listing specialist. A lot of people ask about split with buyer's agents. My split with my buyer's agents is a 60-40, 60 to me, 40 to them. And if you're like, well, why would somebody, do all of the work for 40%? I want to be clear. The hard part of real estate is investing in the relationships to be able to generate the referrals or generate the leads, as well as facilitation of the relationship after the closing. So my buyer's agents are very happy to take 40% to just be handed a ready to buy client. All they need to do is show them houses, secure an offer, and then hand them off to the administrator. It's a lucrative proposition for them as well. I want to caution you about hiring junior or brand new agents for these roles. There is this misconception in the marketplace that a buyer's agent could be somebody that's like just learning the ropes or that sort of thing. I am not going to suggest that that's a good use of a new agent. Because you're going to very quickly learn that they haven't mastered their own conversion yet. So if they haven't figured that out, I am not going to start handing over clients that I have sometimes taken, years to develop a relationship with. This needs to be somebody that already has a high level of skill in the marketplace and is just looking to add a high level of supplemental income. So this is not a role for somebody to figure it out as they go along or learn as they go on either side. These are your clients. You need to know that the person that is handling them on your behalf is going to be as capable as you would be in handling them. And I want to be transparent because some of my team is on this call today. I have buyer's agents and director of sales who are far more skilled at me at putting together a transaction than I ever was, even in my, best years as a real estate professional. And that's really the goal. You want somebody that just has an amazing skill set to be able to bring the transaction together. And they are out there and they are looking for opportunities to join your team in exchange for those very valuable opportunities for income. So that is buyer's agent and director of sales. Really great because this is leverage, guys. If I now can step out of showing houses, and let's say, for example, we've got an active buyer in the marketplace, just to give you an idea of how leverage is actually created. If I can step out of the idea of being on showings with a client for 4 or 5 hours a week, and I can instead turn my attention to making phone calls or being in touch with my best clients, in the time that it took to facilitate a handful of showings in 1 week only, I may be able to step back and do a higher dollar producing activity. In my case, it may be a creation of 4 or 5 more transactions through lead generation. So when we talked about the idea of sharing your income with someone, to be clear, I have 23 agents on my team. I am not sharing my income with 23 of them. What I am doing is opening my hand to say, okay, I'm going to keep 60% of this, but I'm going to give away 40% so that I can go out and multiply this transaction 5 or 6 or 10-fold. So it's that old saying that when your hand is open to give, it's also open to receive. We need to get out of this scarcity mindset that if I give away 40% of my income, then I have to live on 40% less. What you need to think about is I'm giving away 100% of my time, so that I can then go leverage other income opportunities. So that's buyer's agents and director of sales. Let's move on. So, at the top of this call, we talked about the idea of creating additional income streams by building a team. And this is one that is very popular in our marketplace. And this is the lead generation agent. I don't have any of these on my team, but I have had a front row seat to many of these teams. And in fact, when I say front row, my office when I was a Keller Williams agent was directly behind a lead generation team that focused on cold calling. And so when I say front row, I got to listen to that go on hours and hours and hours of a day. So, what does that mean? A lead generation agent, who are they in our marketplace? Lead generation agent is a licensed professional focused exclusively on sourcing new business opportunities. This role requires minimal day to day oversight, but high accountability, and they rely on the team leader or support staff to facilitate the transaction once generated. So, what do I mean by that? A lead generation agent would be somebody who is on a cold calling team, a door knocking team, where you have a team leader that is buying lists of internet leads and then giving it to somebody to sort through and figure out who's real there. Lead generation agents are often in roles that are the most misused assets in our industry. What do I mean by that? These are the roles that when you are a team agent and you get hired to be a lead generation agent and you are enticed to come to the team because we're going to give you leads, there is often a misunderstanding on the team agent's part about what that actually means. If I go out and I spend $1,000 on a list of 1,000 internet leads, and I have somebody who's working by commission sitting at a desk and calling those people and that lead may have been sold 15 times already to other people. Um, and all I'm doing is taking whatever business they can sort through that dumpster fire of a internet lead list. I am probably not making the best use of their time, but I'm creating a stigmatization about teams in the industry that then goes on to burn people from or disincentivize people from joining other types of teams. Lead generation agents are often the most overworked and underpaid people in our industry. And this is where you get a lot of brand new agents that kind of cut their teeth and learn about being on a team or lead generation. So I'll give you an example. A door knocking team would be, and there's one that's very prevalent in my marketplace. And to be clear, I'm not throwing shade on anybody that builds a business around door knocking or cold calling or internet leads. I believe it's a harder way to do business than working by referral, but there are many teams that have great businesses that are built on it. A lead generation team for door knocking, as an example, might look like deciding that all the team members are going to meet at a coffee shop on, X corner at 9 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's going to agree to knock 200 doors. And when you do actually get somebody who is interested in talking about real estate, you'll have an initial conversation at the door, but that business is then secured and then passed over to the team leader who will then be responsible for facilitation of the actual transaction. So they'll sit on the listing presentation, they'll go through the actual selling of the house. And in exchange for the creation or the capture of that new business, the lead gen agent that actually knocked the door will be compensated somewhere as low as 25%, sometimes as high as 50. But the idea is that you are hiring these agents as a team leader to just go out and be an army of people that are going to mine through, the phone numbers or the internet leads or the doors until you find somebody that's ready to do business. Very, very transactional in nature. And there's very high turnover on these teams because A, it's really easy to get burnt out. And B, there is always another brand new licensed person who's willing to step up with the allure of, leads that I'm going to give you to join my team. There's always going to be somebody willing to step into that role. So usually there's set hours in a designated environment. So if you're a cold caller, you're going to sit at that desk, you're going to put that headset on and you're going to call 500 people today, or you're working a geographic farm, or you're being assigned a prospect area. The scope of work dedicated solely to outbound lead generation. So calls, doors knocking, emails, whatever. They're not really doing any administrative transaction or management. They are commission only and they're tied to closed transactions. So commission split is going to be varied on the level of involvement, whether the team leader took over the lead once you secured it or whether they actually participated in the sale. But they're generally not classified as employees. So they are there to go out and hunt for you through they are your foot soldiers on the ground to go out. Business, so they're typically not building their own sphere of influence. What they are doing is just going out, as I said, and mining those transactions for you. And typically speaking, team generated clients are generally retained by those team leaders. So even though you knocked the door, you secured the clients, they met you, the ownership of that transaction or that client is generally retained by the team. Although that's up for discussion and up for negotiation in a team contract. So that is the lead generation agent. There are many mega teams that have an army of agents that I say hired, they don't get paid, but are contracted to literally just go out and generate business in this way. So lead generation agent. And we're going to get into the last one now, which is the team agent. Now, I perhaps have a bias here because almost all of the licensed roles on my team fall into this category. So, what is a team agent? In fact, we refer to them as group agents here at the Carol Foderick Real Estate Group. A team agent is a licensed sales professional whose primary objective is to build their own business within the team ecosystem, leveraging leadership, systems, and administrative support. This role operates with autonomy and accountability, with support to maintain focus on direct dollar producing activities or DPA. So, what do I mean by that? Team agents, and we have several of my team agents on this call. These are agents that work alongside me under the umbrella of services that the Carol Foderick Real Estate Group provides. I retain a portion of what they make. I may share opportunities with them when opportunities arise, but they are here to be supported by the administrative staff that I have hired and trained and retain on their behalf. They are here to learn under mentorship or the leadership of the structure that I put together. They are here to walk alongside me in the marketing calendar that we build at the beginning of the year for them. And so imagine like trying to cross an ocean in a tiny little boat. And this is the effect of tying all the boats together. So in a market like the one that we're in now, I often liken it to the merchant marine that at the beginning of World War II had to figure out a way to get from North America to the European theater of war and not get targeted by U-boats. All of the boats traveled together so that they could be provided with protection and the service of the destroyers that protected them while they didn't have air coverage. So everyone who knows me well knows I love military themes in all of my leadership. But I always sort of think about team agents that way. So we are agents that are building businesses together with joint support. So to be clear, the workplace and schedule are completely at the discretion of the agents. I'm a believer that with team culture, more is caught than taught. And there is a lot to be said for having an in-office environment where people can come in and learn and observe and hear and be motivated by the other top producers in the team. And so protection of the culture is very important to me with regards to that. And so we have established productivity standards in our contracts that require them to do minimum dollar producing activities so for us, that's working by referral, calls, notes, and pop buys. But they are very much their own agents. Sales and client or the scope of work is really sale and client focused. So we are providing the administrative and transactional support to them as a group, and they are sharing their commission with us, and that goes to pay for the administrative support that they receive. Compensation, 100% commission based with a predefined split. This is important. I want to pause here, guys, because many of you will say, well, I would love to scale a team, but I can't afford to give 40% of my income to somebody else. This is not how a team agent role or a group agent role works. The idea is come alongside me. We're going to build businesses together. We're going to share our expenses. I am going to take leadership of this team. I'm going to provide strategic direction. And in exchange for that, you're going to share some of your commission with me. So when we talk about compensation and people not wanting to scale or grow because they feel like they're giving away too much of their income, this is where we now get into the income streams that can be created through scalability of the team. So personal business, to be clear, everybody is building their own business within the umbrella of services that I provide. So they're building a database that they own and has enterprise value within the team structure that is supported by training systems and leadership. So Gabriella, who is on my team, and I see you, Gabe, so I'm going to just say hello. Gabe is building a database that she has complete ownership of. And if she ever found a time that she'd want to leave the team, she would be able to extract that database, which they only know her anyways, and take it with her. My responsibility as a team leader is to provide a workplace that Gabriella does not want to leave and a financial structure that benefits us both as a win-win so that she never see thumbs up, Gabe. That's why I love you. And so the goal of a team or a group structure like what I have is to create a sales environment that compels top producing individuals to come alongside with you so that they can amplify the results of their business and you can share in that in those earnings. And client relationships, in our case, clients are owned and managed directly by the agent. So if Gabriella, as an example, had a client of her own, she would be in constant communication with them. I would have no involvement in that relationship. When the property sells, I'll retain a portion of her commissions, and that will go to pay for the back end administrative and marketing support that she's received by a team. So that is the 5 licensed role, guys. I don't think I've taken a breath, but I want to be clear here. And I want to open up to questions if anybody has one. I'll give you guys the opportunity to unmute. There is one role that is very notable that is not on this. And Dave, you can stop sharing the presentation now. And this slide deck will be available to you guys after the fact, just so you know. There is one role that people often ask about that in fact is not noted here, and that is inside sales agent. So an inside sales agent would be somebody that would call through your database or past clients with the intention of generating business from those past clients. In my case, we do have that role. It's not a licensed person, and their job isn't to just peel off transactions from the database. It is to actually go deeper and create community. So our role is staffed by a wonderful woman named Rachel Boyd, and she is our director of client community. And her job is to literally just call through the database on my behalf, do check-ins. Sometimes there's specific intention of reasons why she's calling. Sometimes it's just to do check-ins. She is there to generate leads out of my database because she's staying in contact with them. And so the reason why that's not a licensed role is because it's been my experience that if I put a licensed person on this, they could start calling through the database. And the first time they had a conversation with somebody about like, yeah, maybe my son wants to buy a condo, they stop calling the database and then they run down that rabbit hole and start facilitating that transaction and only come back to my database when they need another transaction. So for me, it's a salary role that I pay $65,000 a year to. And that generates me millions of dollars of business every year. So it makes sense for that to be a non-licensed customer service role. They needn't be real estate licensed because they're not transacting in real estate. And if there's a conversation to be had about real estate that's outside of the scope of their understanding, I want that conversation to be with me anyway. So that she'll refer them and be like, you know what, let me have Carol give you a call back real quick. So that's it, guys. Questions? I'd love the opportunity to answer anything that you have in the last few minutes. I feel like I've sprayed you all with a fire hose, but hopefully that has answered a lot of your questions. Jim Wynn, with your model of staying connected with your clients, you procured in perpetuity. I do the same. Please remind me, does your model allow buyers agents to stay in contact with your clients who referred them to serve them after the transaction? The answer is no, Jim. They were there to facilitate the relationship only. And actually, when the transaction concludes, there is a introductory email made to our director of client community, and then I'll check in with them, and then it's my responsibility as the owner of that database to continue to stay in touch with them. And in fact, and again, when the transaction, when it's fair and you have clarity in your contracts and in your conversations ahead of time, we have had situations where referrals have come in directly to the buyer's agents that have worked to facilitate those transactions. And the agent just simply says like, hey, John Smith from last month, like his mom is thinking about listing, how do you want to handle it? And very often if there's another buyer's deal, they'll get the automatic kind of go ahead to work with that buyer, but I still retain ownership and the bulk of that commission. So hopefully that answers your question, Jim. It does sort of speak to a greater fear that I hear from a lot of agents, especially agents that are working with a working by referral model, where they'll say, well, the client was referred into me, they expect to work with me. This is a fallacy, guys. When a client comes to you or is referred in or comes back to you as a repeat customer, it is not you they are loyal to, it's the level of service that you and your team provide. And I say your team because it doesn't need to be you personally. I have never lost a client to say, like, wow, no, I'm only working with you if I get to work with you specifically, Carol. When you set up your dialogues ahead of time, you can actually explain that it is a benefit to them to be served by the multiple people that will be involved in the transaction. I joke with people at the listing presentation, like, you're not just hiring me, you're hiring the 35 people that I work alongside. So that's really great value for your commission dollars, isn't it? And so it's important how you frame it to your clients, but it is our own kind of egos that allow us to believe that only we are going to do the best job possible for our clients. The reality is that very often our clients can be better served by an advanced team structure instead of by a single agent where we're just running around like a chicken with our head cut off, trying to be all things to all people. Let's see some other questions. Daniela, so much info regarding group agent roles. Do they transact under your CFT brand? Are they assisting with your database clients? So a whole bunch of questions here. Do they transact under your CFT brand? So every single person on this call has a brand. Whether it's the Carol Fodder Real Estate Group, whether it is Keller Williams, whether it is eXp Realty, whether it is Remax, we all live with somebody's brand behind us. So this idea that joining a team, if you're a team agent thinking about joining, this idea that you are somehow going to lose your autonomy as an agent because you're now transacting under somebody else's name is simply not the case. I could call anybody in Gabriella or Emily Salter's database and they wouldn't know who I was because I have no personal relationship with this person. CFREG appears for my team agents on our marketing so that there is consistency in brand standards, much in the same way as your brokerage may have consistency or brand standards. So I often, I would get the objection sometimes from an agent to be like, well, I don't want your name on my sign. I'm like, well, you already have Gary Keller's name on your sign, but that doesn't bother you. So it's really just about brand alignment. But yes, they do operate under the Carol Fodrick team brand. Are they assisting with my database clients? As I think I mentioned to you before, there are no licensed agents that are in communication with my clients directly. They do not, the clients are contacted by a representative of my group that is non-licensed. And but there are some that are acting in director of sales roles where I'm compensating them for working with some of my seller clients or some of my buyer clients as buyer agents, in addition to running giant businesses of their own. So as an example, Amanda Whidden, who's not on this call, many of you know her. Amanda generates hundreds of thousands of dollars of business of her own. She's consistently, well over $400,000 from her own sphere of influence and her own deals. She also works with a lot of my buyer clients because she's very skilled as a buyer's agent. And I'm going to put my hands, it's like, the Cleveland Cavaliers, they are handing the ball to LeBron James on every possible opportunity because they know he's the best three-point shooter. So I'm going to give my buyers referrals to the agent that I think is going to do the best job with a conversion. How does the commission split work? Differs, negotiates per group agent? No, every group agent on my team is under the exact same commission split. And we do have a graduated commission tier. So for transactions that are generated out of their business, it starts at an 80-20 and it goes all the way up to a 95-5 with them keeping the larger. So I would take 20% in the first tier all the way up to 95-5 at the highest tier. Jocelyn, when did you decide to go from producing agent to a broker and being out of production? I'm wondering if it is worth the pursuit of staying as a team leader, if not becoming a broker owner. Yeah, probably a little bit outside of the scope of the broker owner thing. Jocelyn, as you and I have talked about previously, we opened Signature Elite because we were the largest real estate group in Canada for the largest real estate company in the world. And the company that we were with no longer knew how to serve a team where the team production exceeded the entirety of the rest of the brokerage. Like there's just no mechanism in place for that. So we had sort of outgrown the pot that we were planted in. And when we looked at other options in the marketplace, there simply wasn't another brand that was going to fit a team model. And so when we looked at opening a Remax franchise or an EXP franchise, we determined that our best option was going to be to build our own model and to be able to bring other team leaders who were also in alignment with our perspective into the brokerage as well. So Signature Elite Realty exists here. My team, the Carol Foderick Real Estate Group, exists within the brokerage, but we are also home to several other top producing teams. And if you're an Ontario agent and you want to have that conversation about why other top producing teams are joining Signature Elite, I'd be happy to have those conversations with you. To answer your question, Jocelyn, about when you decide going out of production, I think the answer is when you lose your passion for it. And I make no qualms about telling people that if I still had to be selling real estate, I don't think that I would be doing it anymore because I never loved the actual transaction of real estate. I didn't love the negotiation part of it. I mean, I was good at it, but it was not something that got me excited or got me out of bed in the morning. My passion has always been for leadership and mentorship, and becoming a broker owner was authentic to that. But if you're thinking about, if you're a team leader here on this call and you're thinking about when to step out of production, I would suggest that you start with stepping out of the parts of production that you don't enjoy anymore. So if that means that, you don't really love spending your Saturdays doing open houses or, dealing with offers while you're away on vacation, then maybe the right thing for you is to consider a director of sales that can work with you on your seller clients. If you don't particularly love, driving clients around or showing houses or explaining how real estate works to a first-time buyer, maybe hiring a buyer's agent is going to be your first step. If you love the negotiation and the transaction of real estate, that you don't love the administrative back end of it or the creating with the client content, then I'm going to suggest to you that maybe a licensed admin or a licensed assistant is going to give you the best logistical support for you to go out and do the things that you love. So my answer to anybody that asks when should you be leaving production would be when you no longer have a passion for the parts of it, because we are not doing our clients a service by showing up in a relationship that we are not really excited to be in. And that's, the legacy that I want to leave is leading a team and leading a brokerage of people that love to service clients directly. So hopefully that answers your question, Jocelyn. I have a couple of questions that I want to answer from the pre-submitted ones for the people that are going to be watching the replay. And we got several hundred registrations for this, so I'm hoping that everybody that was going to watch later on has the opportunity to do so. Jay Fontaine in Michigan asked me about systems that keep a team organized. We could have a whole master class on that, and I think we will, Jane. But the short answer is Basecamp, and we have organizational excellence on the back end of our group, and I'd be happy to lead a future masterclass on just what that looks like. And I wouldn't be leading it; it would be the people that are actually executing it. Knowing what you know now, if you were still a solo agent, you were starting a team, who would be your first hire? What quality and experience and skills would you look for? If I was a solo agent and starting a team, I would probably go with a licensed administrator first, because I know the idea of the last two roles, like the lead generator role or the team role, is going to be really appealing. But if you don't have anything to offer those agents in terms of back end support, it doesn't make sense. You're putting the cart before the horse. So I would say if you don't have an administrator, go with a licensed admin as your very first hire, because that's going to be able to create logistical leverage for you as well. And then you can also go out and start hiring team agents that can then help share in the cost of that licensed administrator. A note about hiring admins, because I have a bunch of questions about hiring assistants. My suggestion to you is to hire an assistant, whether they're licensed or unlicensed, that has worked at a brokerage or for another top producer in the past, because they already understand the ins and outs of real estate. What you don't want to do is have to sit down on day one, hour one, and explain to them what an offer is, or how showings are booked, or how real estate is organized. So I've always had my best luck because when we're constantly hiring, and frankly, I'm headhunting. If I'm in a great transaction with somebody and there's a great administrator on the other side, I will ruthlessly try to headhunt that person. And that's how all of our administrators joined our team. When I see excellence, I make an opportunity, I create an opportunity for them on our team, regardless of whether we have a need for them or not. So my advice to you would be have a hard look at who is awesome at your brokerage or at other brokerages. The best talent in this industry is often starts their career path behind the front desk of a real estate office. And they know all the things and they've been to the puppet show and they've seen the strings, and that's a great place to start. So ruthlessly headhunt. Matt, thank you. I appreciate you, Matt. And Carolyn, I appreciate you. If there's no other questions, we can wrap up. But again, guys, just an honor to be in community to you. And again, if you are from out of the Greater Toronto area and you have the need for services in Southern Ontario, always happy to facilitate your Ontario-bound referrals. And if you need a great agent anywhere in Ontario, we or anywhere in Canada, I'm happy to connect you with one of the other agents that we know of in Canada. And if you are an Ontario-based agent and you're thinking about how to either join a team that is absolutely knocking out of the ballpark, or you're a team leader and you're looking for a brokerage that supports you as a team leader through meaningful conversations like this, then I would love to have a conversation with you. It's an exciting time in real estate. 2026 is going to be a year where we can take a lot of ground. And I'm grateful to all of you guys for being community and sharing this hour of a learning opportunity with you. So thank you guys. Please feel free to reach out, carol@carolfodrick.com. You can text me, you can DM me, all the things. And I will catch up with you guys again next month. You'll receive an automatic recording of this one, as well as the show notes and the shareables. And if you have a question that you wanted to ask privately, please reach out anytime. So I'll see you guys again next month on our next edition of Signature Systems. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.